when did making art stop being fun for you? Maybe when you started, it was just an outlet. It was an opportunity for you to just express yourself. If you had a bad day, you could go and make some music. If you were feeling stressed about something, you could write about it. It was an emotional outlet for you. And that's what made it so fun to show up, because you knew every time that you showed up to make art, you were healing yourself in some ways. You were giving something back to yourself. And in a way, you would make art and you'd feel full at the end of making that art. But at some point down the road, that stopped. It stopped being about filling your tank, and it started to feel like emptying your tank. That after sessions where you would do your art composing, you would feel drained, and you'd feel worse than you did before. So what happened? What shifted in that point in time where suddenly the thing you love is starting to become the thing that you feel like you have to do instead of the thing you want to do? I've talked to a lot of students about this, and I've reflected on this myself, and oftentimes what we tend to think is there's some knowledge gap that's holding us back from feeling good about our art. That like, oh, if I just learn this certain thing, if I could just do this one thing, then I would feel great, and that's the thing I have to learn so I can feel great. The problem with that is, if that's the way that you buy into making art, then the practice of showing up for your art is not necessarily going to be a fun one, because it's all based on future thinking. Once I get this thing, then I'll feel good. But I'm sure you can imagine what's going to happen when you do get that thing. And there's no finish line, right? Like if it's orchestration, you're going to learn orchestration, you're going to get good at it, but you're going to feel like there's still things that you have to learn. And so you're going to feel bad and you're going to keep beating yourself up. Yeah, but now I don't know this thing, or now I realize I really don't know what I'm doing. And I just don't think it's a sustainable way to have an enjoyable relationship with your art. But I'd like to propose something else instead to you. Instead of treating your art as something you have to do, and treating the tasks within your art as things that you have to do to get somewhere, I want you to reframe this a little bit. What do you want to do? Like, when you make art, what do you want to do? Because it is not an objective thing. It's very subjective, and it's really based on doing what makes you feel good. You know, if you show up and you want to get better at orchestration, but you're just not feeling it, and instead you just feel like jamming on an instrument, what's stopping you from doing that? Just jam on your instrument. You know, you're going to get better regardless, as long as you're showing up. So why not make the process of showing up something you actually enjoy? In my experience working with a bunch of students and composers through my mentorship group, what I notice is that sure, there are some knowledge gaps that we desire to improve our art and get it to a place where we're happy with it naturally. But there's a refusal to acknowledge the growth that we have or have had. And there's a resistance to making art feel playful and fun and curious. And I want to change that. I believe that art can be fun while you're making it. I don't like the idea that art has to be this slog and this painful thing, and artists suffer so that other people can enjoy what they do. I don't believe that. I don't want a lifestyle as an artist where it's pain constantly. I want to love what I do and love the process of making something, and then have other people feel that love and feel that joy and inspiration. It's a huge reason why I make videos on this channel in the first place. Is art always going to feel fluid and joyful? Absolutely not. Of course, there's times when things get difficult and you have to work through some tough problems. But where's the motivation to work through those problems come from? I believe it comes from an inner conviction that it's going to work out, and that in time you're going to make something that you love. And then there's all this fear and anxiety and scarcity people feel about, well, what if I put all this time in and nobody hears my music? What if I put all this time in and it doesn't get me any work? Doing something you love isn't a waste of time. That is the outcome. And the only thing you need to evaluate is if you're loving it while you're doing it. You've got to make that process of showing up for your art an enjoyable one. And it's going to involve you tapping into muscles that maybe you haven't flexed since you were a kid. When I was feeling burnt out, what I wound up doing was asking myself, what did it feel like to make art as a kid? How was I different? How did I show up differently? And for me, it was like, I didn't finish a lot of stuff. I was much slower. I had a lot more input. I would take more walks. I would read fiction books. I would play more games. I'd listen to music more. I was more patient with myself. I didn't have expectations, I was more focused on the process of making something cool than I was about the hopes of something transforming my life or my career. And when I was able to tap into that, redecorating my studio, reading more, writing more, listening to music more, hanging out with friends, the art flowed for me much more naturally. And I'm sure you can see it in these new videos where I'm making this dark fantasy album. I just wish for artists everywhere to not put so much pressure on themselves and to learn how to treat art as an outlet again, whether it's as a hobby, professionally, or anything in between. In order for you to do what you love, you have to love what you do. And it takes active effort to maintain that love, but it has to come from a place of curiosity, joy, lightness, conviction, faith. These are skills that need to be nourished if you're an artist who wants to continue to enjoy what you do. And I wish that for you and for me and for every artist out there. Don't fall out of love with your craft. Really take effort to make sure that it stays fun. Because fun's the name of the game. You can't guarantee that you're going to make a masterpiece ever in your life. You can't guarantee that hundreds of people, thousands, anything, a single person, you can't guarantee that anybody will listen to your music. So you may as well just enjoy the process. And whatever happens from that enjoyment happens. Or doesn't happen. But for goodness sake, keep staying in love with your art. Do stuff you're passionate about. When you're not passionate, be willing to change and adapt so that you can find that passion again.